Then there were a couple of organizations, especially in US and other geographies, who
think about Daniel Goleman's 5 attributes that a good leader should have, and it was more on emotional intelligence, self-regulation. Ki emotions pe control hona chahiye. He should know what he's thinking. He should be able to control his emotion.
Maybe 15 years back, organizations were very different.
This is a good place where possibly leadership norms have been properly followed, or whatever you might want.
Let me find out, why are some publications so much more popular than the other? 50% of the results are produced by square root of the total number of contributors.
Design thinking क्या होती है? In simple words, what is design thinking? Effort paradox, right? Like, why does it happen? ऐसा क्यों होता है?
10 people, which is square root of 100 is 10. 10 people will be producing almost 50% of the output. 10 will be successful, and those 10 will give you more than 50% of what you're looking for.
Hi Ankush, how are you?
Hi Vishal, I'm very good, man. How are you?
I'm good. So first of all, thank you for joining this podcast. Join करने के लिए तुमने time निकाला. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure.
So today we will be discussing about design thinking and leadership, and these two topics I will be talking about primarily because I know that you speak a lot about this, and ये तेरे area of interest भी है, design thinking और leadership. तो सबसे पहले what I'll want to start with would be कि I did some research about design thinking because per se I'm not an expert on it. So what I came to know कि design thinking as a term was first coined in 1980s, but I think it has become only popular in the last decade or so. कि ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा लोग इसको बोलने लग गए हैं कि design thinking is a term which is commonly used in parlance, right, across the world and across the business community and professional world. So if we were to define कि design thinking क्या होती है in simple words, so what is design thinking?
Sure. And I think it's a great question to start off with. So we began our kind of career at the same time, right? Almost same time. And at the time, I think design thinking was in its very early stages. And this was even before 10 years, right? It's been a long time since we were working.
15 years.
We knew about design. And whenever you heard the word design, you would think about what meets the eye, which is what is very visual, or we say, oh, this looks very beautiful, so that means it's very well designed. But what started happening was organizations started valuing design more and more. And then there were a couple of organizations, especially in US and other geographies, who thought about how do we scale up design in organizations and how do we make them more aware of it and then start implementing these methods. And I think that's where design thinking as a term became more popular, I would say, in the last 10 or 12 years. Essentially, if I have to put it in maybe a couple of lines, it's a structured way of thinking, just like a designer would have thought, to deliver something which is different. And I said the word different, and I'm not using the word design, well-designed, innovative or all, because you're designing something different. Now, it might be innovative, it might be incremental, disruptive, it might be well-designed or not well-designed. Those are the outcomes. But again, it's a structured way of how a designer might think when they're coming off for any outputs. And that's where it helps organizations, individual organizations understand what it is.
Sure. इसको थोड़ा link करने की कोशिश करते हैं with leadership. Right, because leadership is again one thing we talk about a lot. So when we talk about leadership, the first thing, or probably the only thing that comes to my mind is कि if you remember, I Am Lucknow mein we had read this thing about Daniel Goleman's 5 attributes that a good leader should have, and it was more on emotional intelligence. So उसमें 5 attributes. One of them is self-awareness. The leader should be self-aware. He should know what he actually wants, because once he knows what he wants, then probably he'll be able to have the proper ask from his employees. Second is self-regulation. Ki emotions pe control hona chahiye. He should know what he's thinking. He should be able to control his emotions. He should be able to motivate. He should have empathy for his employees. Right? He should be able to understand what is going through them in their mind. And last but not the least, they should have social skills. Ultimately, they should be able to extract the maximum juice from, say, the social ecosystem to be able to work well. Now, when you talk about leadership by design, is it an increment over जो हमारा conventional thinking of leadership है, or it completely flies in the face of conventional leadership, or it is something, or is it just an incremental change, or how is it different from, say, what we think is a leadership norms?
Great question, Vishal. And I think I'll commend your memory, and obviously you revised a lot. 15, 16 years back, what we learned, you remember it. Um, so you see, there are various theoretical concepts on leadership. And just now you talked about Daniel's leadership theory, and very rightly said there are these components which are important. And they still hold value. So when we talk about leadership, I think these values are super important. um, what has changed is as organizations have shifted, right? Maybe 15 years back, organizations were very different because technology was not moving so fast. The world wasn't moving so fast. We were still talking about globalization. Some parts of the world had seen it, some were still figuring out what it is. Um, in any geography, we had certain sets of people. Now, the sets of people have been traveling around. And you talk about, let's say, in India, right? You don't have only like one sets of Indian living in India. Also, you have people who have traveled around, then people coming from outside in India. Within India itself, there are people from rural versus urban areas, such different mindsets. Now, with all of these shifts, the leadership also needs to change along with it. So leadership by design essentially then means how can we utilize the framework of, let's say, design thinking into leadership. So same ways, we always are innovating in an organization. Innovation has never stopped. But now you're talking about how does design thinking help innovation in a whole different way. So that's where essentially the theory here is, the how can design thinking help these leaders lead their teams and organizations very, very differently, and can it help them in certain ways while keeping some of these theories still there. So we still talk about self-awareness, regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills, but it gives a few other flavors. Does that
Got
make
it.
sense to you?
Yeah, it does. It does. So suppose if I were to walk into an office, like any office
Hmm.
environment, और हम ये कहें कि हाँ, this is a good place where possibly leadership norms have been properly followed,
Hmm.
or whatever you might want to call it. So how would a well-designed leadership environment look like? मतलब, what would it contain?
Yeah. Okay. Now that I'm thinking about it, you see, again, no size fits all, right? So organizations are very different, and each context needs a different kind of organization. And sometimes the organization is like an organism. It has its own life, the way it's living, the way it's growing up, and the way it's evolving. The same goes for leadership. So I never say, oh, you go and see, and if you see these signals, that's what indicates good leadership. Maybe not. However, at the same time, I think there are some cues, and these can be empirical data which are observational, or maybe you have walked into it and you're saying, I think this looks good. So I think some of those things would be um, how well the leader knows their teams, and it's not just through spreadsheets and excels. That's where I think design thinking is also talking about something which is related to Daniel's theory, which is, have you empathized with your teams? And it has become really important in the age of AI also, right? It's very easy to, again, build a Tableau dashboard and say, I've understood my employees. And another thing to say, I have now gone down to the ground level and I've understood what my employee goes through. So some of the great organizations, for example, I'm right now in Singapore. I know senior management of Grab, which is one of the cab hailing company here. They literally shadow a driver to see what a driver's journey might look like. And I know, for example, Zomato in India, sometimes their leadership goes on the ground to see what's happening with our delivery team and what struggles they are facing, or are they happy or not, right? It might be that, contrary to the assumptions, they are pretty happy too. But essentially, the point is, are they empathizing or not? And I think one of the other things also is, a great team also exists when there's a lot of conflict there, which maybe we can go deeper into it, which is saying that, hey, if you have no conflict in the team, if no one is challenging you, I think that sometimes is an indicator that maybe you are leading in a very different way and times have changed. Maybe you should start listening to what's happening on the ground. And you should be challenged every day rather than you only time challenging the other team members. So, yeah, a couple of signals there.
Yeah. मतलब मुझे वो ग्रुप थिंक वाले टर्म की भी याद आ रही. The moment you said if nobody is saying anything, that means there's a group thing going and it's a recipe for disaster for sure. So now I know that
Yeah.
you are like consulting a lot of companies. You consult a lot of companies, and these companies, some of them are public sector companies, some of them are
Mm.
privately held companies, corporates.
Mm.
तो कुछ जो common things that you can see across these companies when it comes to good leadership, what is the common patterns that you can see which you think are say observable across all the companies, be it say public sector or even private companies? वो common patterns क्या होते हैं?
Yeah. So I think, as I said, organizations work as organisms, living organisms. So either be a government or private or public, they are essentially then organisms and how they interact with each other. So I think if I observed some things which are common patterns of what they are doing good according to what I'm also teaching and preaching would be um, that how frequently are the leaders looking at both quantitative and qualitative data for the employees and learning from it. So in Singapore, for example, the government bodies are very well known. And one of the things which is very well done in Singapore government bodies is these senior leaders again go down on the ground. They'll sometimes sit down in hawker centers, which are like food courts. They'll take the public transport. And they'll get a feel of what is it like to be a citizen on the ground. Many times, the second thing which they do is active experimentation, which is they look for ideas on the ground. Maybe the ideas might be coming from an employee who's working at the operations level, or it might be coming from a citizen. Or in case of a private company, it might be someone sitting in a call center talking about an idea. But what happens is they have a structured or an unstructured way of getting these ideas to them, and they start working on them. Risk-taking ability, that would be the third one, where some of them are actually really good, and it shows not on maybe short term, but on long term. Because again, risk-taking sometimes might backfire in short term. A lot of people might say, why did you do this idea? It doesn't look good at all. A lot of challenges, but on long term actually does give a lot of benefits. And again, not stretching a lot, but I think the last thing, which is they become a learning system and a learning organization, which is they fail fast, they learn from it. As a leader, they fail fast too and learn from what they have done. And then they do something better or completely change directions. So these are some of the things which I have seen as patterns, works really well across these organizations, shows in their both failures, short-term and long-term successes.
Okay. You had once spoken about a term called sandbox leadership, something, if I remember correctly, which was quite interesting. What is that about? वो थोड़ा बताओ उसके बारे में. What is that mindset?
Interesting.
Sandbox leadership mindset. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, I think let me give a small example before I go into it, right? And it might connect the dots between leadership, organization, and sandbox leadership too. When we are children, right, and when we are growing up, and I'm sure you have noticed your own kids or here and there, children learn very differently. Even if they think they're very smart, they keep listening through their eyes, through their ears. They are listening. They like to touch everything. There's a socket. You say there's current and you might get a shock. They still want to poke in there because they don't have a failure mindset. And they think, let me learn first and let me build my mental model and then I'll do something with it. And they don't even know what they'll do. But I think many times leaders, and that's where maybe you're asking initially, right? Traditional leadership fears that, hey, I don't think we should do it because someone told me if I put my finger in a socket, I'll get a shock. That's what happens to leaders, right? They get told, we worked with this idea, never worked. This fails. Or someone told this is against regulation. So then connecting the dots. So sandbox leadership says that have that beginner's child mindset, create a small playroom, which is called sandbox, and do your experiments there. So you can think of it as a leader's playroom, which is they create an environment, a space. It might be virtual or physical or a mix of both. with a small team. They might be full-time or part-time, again, depending on the organization. They might have a small or big budget, again, completely up to it. But they're saying, let me play in this. Let me play with my ideas here, which might range from very tactical, build a website, to very strategic, what if we change regulations or some big policy? And then we learn from it. And then the learning comes out into the bigger organization. So sandbox leadership is a smart way of, I would say, experimenting. Initially, sandbox are very popular in tech world. You will say, I have a sandbox environment. But I think now leaders are trying to make it a bit more in an organizational context too. And that's what it means.
Yeah, this almost sounds like a startup mindset where you kind of do things, iterate, build a prototype, keep on testing it until you hit the sweet spot. Yeah, we have this MVP ready, and now possibly we can take it out to the larger world.
Sorts of, yes, yeah.
Okay.
So, and you're doing a lot of startup work too, right?
Yeah.
A lot of these things. Huh?
Yeah. So that is how startups typically work. So the moment you started defining it, that thought came to my mind. This is pretty much how you build a startup. So you are like what you just mentioned. I think 5 minutes back. Fail faster, try things, fail faster, and then move on. So talking about moving on. So we have talked about leadership and talked about organizations. So design thinking concepts, can they also be applied at an individual entity level, like for an individual or say for an employee? Is it possible?
Yeah. Awesome. So we are going deeper and deeper, and I love the direction. And before again answer how it applies to an individual, I'll again tell a short story. So in 1963, there was a physicist whose name was Derek Prince, and he studied scientific publications. His idea was, let me find out why are some publications so much more popular than the others. And he noticed something very interesting. He looked at which ones are most popular and which ones don't work at all. And you might think, hey, you know what? I think it might be following a bell curve, right? Like the top 10% are very popular and the rest don't work out. And most of them are in majority middle. But actually, it was far away from bell curve. And that got to be known as Prince's Law. So you can refer to it. Prince's Law says that 50% of the results are produced by square root of the total number of contributors. Now, I know it's mathematical, hard to... so let me put it into perspective. It says, if you have 100 people company or 100 people working for you, 10 people, which is square root of 100 is 10, 10 people will be producing almost 50% of the output. So,
which seems to be a slight variation of Pareto law, right? 20-80 rule.
Yeah.
Slight variation.
Yeah, slight variation. Yeah. So they are maybe, it's as a theoretical concepts, although very old, sometimes are very helpful. So he said this. And then since then, people have studied various systems. And you won't imagine, but actually this is true in many environments. In fact, just out of the whole galaxy, it's square root of those stars, which is maybe if there are 1,000 stars, there is just less than 10 or 20, which actually produce more than 50% of the light. He studied computer systems. He studied YouTube. And in all of these organizations or teams or whatever, it was square root of the number of people who made 50% or more of the productivity gains. And so what I'm talking about that is, that's what leads to you as an individual. So what it says is, sometimes we stop with first effort, or we have done something 10 times and we say, hey, I have failed 10 times and I don't want to do it. Actually, you shouldn't be stopping there. You should make 100 attempts. And what it says is, out of those 100, maybe 10 will be successful, and those 10 will give you more than 50% of what you're looking for. But then most of the times we stop at the top 10. And then the margin of error is lot, and we don't get the benefit of it. So finally ending it with a summary saying that even for an individual, if you're applying these principles, it's not just skill. it's not just opportunity, or sometimes you say it was very lucky. It's actually skill multiplied by consistency, multiplied by opportunity, and a percentage of luck compounded over time, which leads to an individual success. So that's what these principles are applying to an individual level.
मतलब एक्सट्रीमली इंटरेस्टिंग. बट इसमें मुझे एक क्वेश्चन, बहुत ही ऑब्वियस सा क्वेश्चन आ रहा है कि and it happens across the life that when you're growing up, say in your teens or early 20s, you get stuck in a relationship, right? And you're not able to move. It has happened with all of us. Then you start working in your professional life, you are probably stuck in a company, or you are probably stuck in an industry, and you're not able to move out of it, right? You kind of get stuck, and you kind of decide that this is going to be my fate for the rest of our life.
तो
जो ये change करना है, और this moving out of this mindset, or not being able to get unstuck, why does this happen? Given that Prince's law says that square root of your number of attempts or would lead to success eventually, and ultimately it is all about probability, right? The number of attempts you make, ultimately one of them would give you a fair chance of huge success. So ऐसा क्यों होता है कि we are not able to move on or get unstuck?
Yeah, and it's a fascinating question, and I won't say that I have not been through it. Everyone has been through it. I'm sure you have been in some point of life. And when we retrospectively think and reflect, I think there are interesting observations or insights which you can draw from our own lives and observing others' lives. So I think one of the big failures, what happens is we stop putting consistent efforts beyond a point sometimes. Because let's take a very simple example, right? Everyone, beginning of the year, they do a resolution. I'll go to gym there every year. That's why the gym signups go up a lot beginning of the year. Maybe they even go to the gym 1st of January. Maybe again, their body is sore on 2nd of January. They'll again go 1 week after, 7th of January. And then they'll say, done, because I can't see my body shaping up. I'm not saying happens to everyone, but 99.99% people go through this phase. And eventually their gym membership runs, and then they see money being deducted, and they're not going, and they eventually stop by March or April. But you see, it's the same law, which is, it says you need to consistently put and wait for the results to show over a period of time. And that doesn't happen. And that might again be the current era is everything is fast, right? You can get food in 8 minutes, but you can't build a body in 8 minutes. So we are also attention deficient. So that combines with the law, which I was just talking about. And that means that we are not putting enough effort to go into that point of time where we see and start seeing results. And that's why most of the time, it's not that we are stuck. It's just that we are introspecting and deliberating so much that we haven't reached that stage to see the success.
So, like, why this? If I can say, like, it's an effort paradox, right? But like, why does it happen? ऐसा क्यों होता है?
Yeah. So, see, effort paradox. Before I explain that, I'll leverage another theoretical concept and an effect. It's called Dunning-Kruger effect. It's very interesting. And again, you might have heard it or read about it. And let me refresh your memory of what it might be. So the effect says it's a cognitive bias, Dunning-Kruger effect. It says when people have limited knowledge or competence about a domain, they overestimate their skills. Because they have the inability to recognize how much they are incompetent about it. Let me now break it down. So let's say you're learning a new skill. Let's say AI, which is now almost everywhere. You start learning it. Maybe you've just learned 1%, and you have high confidence. And you start telling your friends, you know what? Hey, I know how it works. I have very good abilities in it, although your ability might be very less. So it's called peak of false confidence. And the alternative is, then you learn more and more. Maybe now you're an expert. You've done even a PhD or research on it. And the more you know about a topic, you might have realized that you actually become humble. Then you think, hey, I don't think I know enough about it before giving a judgment, right? You might have realized, right? The more you know about a topic, you are scared to talk about it because you know so much about it, but you don't know how much you should share and you should tell about it. So you become humble as you grow your knowledge in a domain. So that's where the effort paradox also comes into play, which says is when you're starting to learn a skill, you always think that that skill is super hard and you don't take efforts to learn it. You might spend 1 hour or 1 day on it, and then you think either it's very hard or you think you have already got a lot. And actually, you should be putting more effort beyond that 1 day to 100 day, but you stop there because of these cognitive biases, or because you get either lazy, or because you see that maybe you have learned enough. But actually, when you do it consistently over a longer period of time, you become a master of it. And many times, only 1% of us go and become masters of it. And they are the ones who then reach all high echelons. And then we say, hey, this person might be lucky. But then let me again remind you, it's not just luck. It's a multiplier of skill, consistency, opportunities, and luck does play a part, but it's not the only thing in the equation.
Got it. So do you think discomfort is an important signal for people to really start going over that effort hump को cross करने के लिए?
Yes.
Do you think discomfort is
absolutely. Absolutely. And here we can connect to the leadership one too, right? So how we said, you walk into an organization or a team, how do you know that the team is working efficiently? If someone is challenging you. All right. So we said there should be some dissonance in the team, right? At an individual level, that dissonance is discomfort, right? So if you are feeling discomfort and you're out of your comfort zone, which we say, and you're feeling vulnerable, and you're feeling on the edge, and you're feeling, aaj ye mujhse nahi ho payega. But if you get that feeling, that means you're doing something right. That's what I sometimes say. The moment you think, aaj mujhse nahi ho payega, I think you should do it. And I've seen some of the fitness folks, because nowadays I do a lot of these activities. I notice a trend there also. People who are really fit, you know what's common between them? Even if they are very tired, they say, oh, it was a long day. My work started at 6 a.m. I dropped my kids. I did this, went to office, 100 meetings, finishing at 8, and so tired. But they end up in the gym and they say, I'm really tired, but I'll just pick up dumbbell for 10 rounds. That's it. But the 10 round becomes 1 hour. And that's what makes a change in the lifestyle. And over a period of time, they are the ones who are really fit. It's not the ones who think, hey, I finished my work at 5, but I'm going to just relax and maybe do it another day because I'm already tired. So reaching the gym made them do so much more than thinking about it.
Got it. So if we were to summarize, if like say one is stuck in life or say in career, कौन से, like what would be the few principles of say design mindset that can really pull them out of it?
Yeah. So I think we can kind of summarize in some of these things, right? One is they need to start thinking about themselves as an entity too, which is continuously shifting, right? Our mindsets keep shifting, personalities, behaviors, and everything. That's where I sometimes talk about this thing about prototyping your identity on what you can do. So you cannot be thinking about yourselves as a fixed form. You need to think about what can I do next? And then maybe sandbox leadership can be applied to themselves, which is they can create smaller experiments for themselves at individual level. That means think of yourselves not as fixed personas. Think of yourselves as walking prototypes. I think that will make a huge difference. Iteration versus attachment. You were saying, hey, you do a lot of iteration even in your startup world, and a lot of other folks might talk about it. I think one thing which I always tell people when I'm coaching them also is think of iteration as not just improving on something. Iteration skill or behavior also means you're ready to kill your own idea. How many times you're doing something and someone says, hey, it doesn't look good, and you get offended and then you keep doing it saying, I'll prove it to him. I think going back to Prince's law, once you do 100 times, you look at what those 100 times have resulted. and again, square root of 100 is 10. Out of those 100, 10 would have actually resulted in good, but look at those 90 and subtract them, which is don't do that again. So that's what real iteration means, that maybe you are ready to kill 90 of your ideas which started and saying that I'm okay with it. And it's the inverse of attachment. Don't get attached to your own ideas. Doesn't work, move on. Look at what your larger goal is. Effort paradox, which says, again, don't look at just short-term efforts. Put it consistently. Don't think about luck. It will come through too, and that will show you the outcomes. And lastly, I think we talked briefly about discomfort, which is you need to be uncomfortable today to make the future comfortable. And then again, it happens iterative.
I very well remember one of my startup founder friend once told me that at the end of a startup, suppose if you have become a successful entrepreneur, the person that you would be at the end of it would be completely different from the one that had started. So he would be an entirely different person. And if you have not become an entirely different person by the end of it, then probably you're not at the end of a successful entrepreneurial career. तो जो बंदा एंड में होगा वो बिल्कुल डिफरेंट होगा. You'll be a completely different man from what you were before that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say even that successful man then keeps changing, right? That's why I think, look at the best of our leaders who are from the recent startups, right? Be it Deepinder from Zomato, some of our folks who have started their own. You see, they keep changing. They are restless, right? We sometimes use the word, hey, this person is restless. He always... But they are changing, they're shifting, and that's what is the success story behind them. It's not that they have come up with one great idea. I'm sure they came up with 100 ideas. We're seeing the one which made them successful.
कौन से skill sets would be more handy for people in this AI augmented world?
Currently, I'm working in NUS, which is National University of Singapore, and part of my teaching, AI is actually changing how we are as humans, right? So his attachment to ChatGPT is a different level.
4 दिन पहले या 5 दिन पहले, I was talking with ChatGPT and I asked, basis the kind of questions that I asked you, please recommend me 2 good books to read.
In fact, they are so emotionally connected that sometimes they feel very happy, very agitated, very angry. ChatGPT and you say, can you tell me how the weather for today evening might be? That exchange of information leads you to some kind of attachment. You now know that ChatGPT gives me trustworthy answers. Fight with their girlfriend or boyfriend or wife or husband, they might go to Ben and say, hey Ben, I had this fight, what should I do?